Okay, this video is about how does focused breathing lower stress levels. Okay, we'll just talk a little bit about the brain here. In the center of the brain is something called DMN for default mode network. If you put a patient on a functional MRI table and just have them lay there and close their eyes and you talk to them and you ask them, what you thinking about? Most of the time they're going to say they're thinking about social relationships because social relationships are very important to human survival and life. And so people often are thinking about something that happened recently, and then they're also thinking about something happening in the future. That's what we think about when we're by ourselves, thinking about social relationships. And sometimes a person can be stressed out. They can be obsessing about, a social disappointment or a social mistake they made, so to speak, worrying about some imminent stressful thing. The other major network of the brain activity is along the convexities, where the brain is convex along its outer surface. And this is where most of the cerebral cortex is. And this is called the task-based network. And with a task, when you're doing something, you're in the present. When you're thinking in the default mode network about social relationships and you're by yourself, you are usually thinking about the past or the future. And this is how the brain separates time. Past and future are occupation, like a time travel machine of the default mode network, whereas active engagement in a task is a task-based network. The salience network is in between the two, and that's largely, excuse me, when you hear a noise or something, you pay attention. You see motion out of your peripheral vision, you turn your head, you look at it. So that's distractions, for example. We have to pay attention to that because in the wild, if something new is happening, that could be dangerous, and you better pay attention to it. Okay, so anyways, now we'll go into what really happens. Okay, how does focused breathing lower stress? Well, the brain can only focus on one thing at a time. The default mode network is located mostly in the center of the brain. Focuses on past and future, especially social relationships. The task-based network is mostly located on the outer surface of the brain, the convexities, cerebral cortex. People are sometimes stressed out about social situations, obsessing, worrying. And when they're stressed, they spend more time in what's called the sympathetic autonomic nervous system. Usually it's abbreviated SANS. And that is the accelerator of the body, fight or flight response, stress response. And it especially elevates the hormones, cortisol and adrenaline and noradrenaline. Adrenaline can also just be called epinephrine, and noradrenaline, norepinephrine. Sympathetic autonomic nervous system, SANS, fight or flight mode, stress response is typically remembered everything that occurs, like a medical student mnemonic is, or metaphor is being chased by a tiger in the dark. And it's like the accelerator on a brake. Speed up. Okay, now adrenaline causes increased heart rate. You can feel your heart pounding and it's beating harder, so it'll increase your blood pressure. And that's all characteristic of a stress response. And it's designed really for short-term physical problems in our ancient ancestors. When a person is calm and relaxed and feeling pretty good, they're in a parasympathetic autonomic nervous system mode called PANS. PANS is like the brake of a car. It's rest and digest, feed and breathe. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to digest food. And the human body shifts its focus when it's doing that. And you think about it, you eat a big dinner. Then it's pretty normal to go to sleep pretty soon after that. When the belly is full, the brain don't need to be too smart, doesn't need to be too alert. It's in the morning when you're hungry, an animal's hungry, you better be smart and go find some food. So anyways, when a person is obsessing about the past and the future in the default mode network, they'll feel better if they get into an activity that pulls them into the present. Sometimes people feel going to work gets them off their personal problems, or exercising is a great way. Having a pleasant conversation, listening to pleasant upbeat music, sometimes prayer for some people. So these are all mood improvers, pulling a person into a present activity. Focused breathing is along those same lines. When you focus on your breath, counting your breaths, sometimes chanting a mantra, that pulls a person into the present, and it's a controllable situation. So the brain's only focusing on one thing, and it's something that the brain can easily control, and that by pulling oneself into the present, you get away from being in the past and future default mode network mode where you were stressed out, and that will improve mood, and that can lower blood pressure, lower heart rate. So the standard mantra for middle-aged men is typically something like, it could be worse, it could be worse, it could be worse.